Hello and welcome to the Teardown sessions. Hi everybody, my name is Helen, I'm your host today, and here we are with Lukas Hartmann, who is the founder of MNT Research and the creator of the very famous MNT Reform open source laptop. Nice to see you, Lukas. Hello. It's evening where you are. You're joining us from your workshop in Berlin, is that correct?
Yeah. It's Friday night. I'm still at work.
Well, it's Friday night here. I'm normally on the west coast of the US, but I'm in the UK visiting family. So it's my evening, my Friday night today. So what better way to spend a Friday night than to hang out with you, geeking out? So let's kick off. Let's start straight away. And let's see. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Lukas, and tell us a little bit about the projects that you've been working on.
Yeah, so I'm Lukas, also called MNTMN or Minuteman, and I'm the founder of MNT Research. I'm in electronics since around 2015, maybe. Before, I was mostly working as a software developer, and also did some management in the software world and so on. And I started to get into electronics mostly because of my Amiga, Commodore Amiga computer. I had this. Yeah, it was a hobby to kind of get back into it, and then I wanted to have or let's say after a long time of not doing that, I wanted to set up my old Amiga again and get some of the boxes that I couldn't afford, when I was a teenager. And I was shocked to see that the hardware became like a collectible, and then if you wanted to buy a graphics card, you had to pay outrageous money for something that did like VGA on eBay. And then I was like, can I maybe make my own graphics card, based on FPGA, perhaps. So that's how it all started with Spartan 6 FPGA development board and then how do I connect it to this old computer, and try to learn KiCad, the open source electronics design program. And
the rest is history.
The rest is history. This started really next to my full-time job that I had, and then.
But you don't do that anymore. You're full-time doing design work now, right? You're full-time on MNT Research now, aren't you? Which is a huge achievement. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And since when was that? That's so you did that while you were. So when we lived in, I used to live in Berlin, for those of you that don't know. And when I was living in Berlin, I think you were still doing. Weren't you still doing development work part-time? But when did you start going? When did you start to concentrate full time on creating open source hardware?
Probably around 2018, roughly. So I think end of 2018, we rented this space. We moved, I think, January 2019 in here. So we is like me and Greta. So we were we were a couple back then, but we're not a couple anymore. But now we're like co-workers. And
you're still studio mates, though, yeah.
Exactly. So, and she does most of the for our prototypes, most of the assembly work.
Oh wow. That's a lot of work. Yeah. I've been watching these stacks and stacks and stacks of boxes like being sent off to our warehouses in Texas on Twitter, and like every time I see them, I'm like, oh my goodness, that is so much work. like the physical assembly of all those pieces, and it's been a humongous task. How many did you actually ship so far?
A bit over 200 laptops.
That's amazing.
So that's
all fully open source.
Yeah, so that's the crowdfunding units, right?
Mm-hmm.
So actually,
yes, of course.
These did not yet go to your warehouse. We kind of agreed later that that we would ship all of them, even the ones not going to EU. So we ship directly all of the crowdfunding units, and now is kind of the second phase where we will build batches for you, like for crowd supply. And so these will all go to the warehouse.
To be stuck. It's all very exciting. And there's so many different parts that come with creating an open source laptop. You've got, of course, you started off with your graphics card, which is FPGA based. Tell me how did you go from I want to make a graphics card to deciding fully that you wanted to go into making an entire open source laptop? I mean, were you? I mean, I'm imagining you were inspired by Bunny's Novena originally, or did you? I mean, had you heard? Did you hear of Novena before you started working on your own? Of course, yes.
Yeah.
So what was it? Tell me about that.
Okay, so I recently a friend of mine found the original kind of chat where, like an IRC from 2015, where I had the kind of impulse, like the idea to start this. So that's 6 years ago. And it was born out of frustration with MacBook, where I installed Linux on it because it was getting slower with the official operating system. It was getting slower, and I had more problems, and Apple moved more and more towards this kind of App Store stuff, and I was like kind of unhappy, and then figured out that you could actually install Linux on a MacBook, and I tried that, and I was surprised that it was pretty fast, but a lot of stuff didn't work, like the usual driver problems. So I had problems with the Wi-Fi. I was going to a cafe and then it would drop out, and so I went very far down the rabbit hole of trying to debug all of this, and then I was more and more like astonished about how this thing was constructed and how problematic the whole driver and firmware situation is, like with lots of closed source blobs and all that. And also it became more and more clear that the devices went into a direction where they would be like more and more unfriendly to people who would like to like open them, repair them, upgrade them themselves. So both on the hardware and the software side, we're kind of getting more and more closed. And I was thinking, like, this is not the kind of computer that I want to use. How hard could it be to make a new one? That is like open from the beginning, and kind of an insane idea, right? And I found the Novena. I did some research. I found the Novena project and was like, this is pretty close to what I want. And but it was at that time, I think, already kind of over. It had been shipped, and I think the laptop itself, like there was like this laptop version of Novena, but it was not available anymore. Like you could only get this kind of desktop box kit, like inverted kind of laptop. And I thought, that's not what I want. But I started out, with prototype, started out with IMX6, or a new version of IMX6 that was kind of already used in Novena.
Did you draw any? So you actually came up with the idea before you found the Novena. You had the idea to come up with an open thing, an open piece of hardware equipment to match up with the open software that you were trying to run on your closed proprietary Mac. And then you found Novena as part of that research. And did you actually draw any inspiration from the way that Benny did things with the original open source laptop? As part, did any of those design decisions that he made for the Novena inform the design decisions that you made while you were coming up with the specs for the MNT reform?
That's a good question. We certainly looked at it a lot. There was a plan to use certain aspects of it, like it had like this grid of screw threads in it where you would install modules and so on. So from the beginning, the idea to be like more modular was definitely inspired by Novena. But in the kind of design process with Anna, I found or met Anna Dantas, the industrial designer, through some events in Berlin, through Fab Lab and so on. And I wrote her like, do you want to design a laptop? I have this project. I would like, I have a little bit of money, from my day job, and I would like pay you for designing a laptop.
So the industrial design, or what was Anna's role?
Yeah, so her role was to discover with me the form factor, like the form, like to give it a form, and to give it a structure, like a three-dimensional structure. And there are some drawings also on. There's like an original article somewhere on a website that has the original concept drawings. And some of them are quite different from how it turned out.
I'd love to see them. If you can send them over, I'll put them in the notes for the people who are watching this after it's live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Novena was your train of thought as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to show it. Maybe one moment. I will bring something.
Sure, absolutely. Well, in the meantime, I'm just going to say hi to the people who've said hi to us in the chat. We've got Drew Festini in the chat, who was very excited that we were going to talk to you, and he wanted me to tell you to say hi to Tina the dog. So hello from Drew. We've also got Leon and Abby in the chat. I always love to see you, Leon. You always pop into our live stream. So hi back there to you. And then finally, we also have Sam and Faris who popped in to say hi. Hello. So there's a few people hanging out with us. So thanks for hanging out. And I will say that if anybody is hanging out in the chat, this is supposed to be interactive. So if anybody has any questions, burning questions for Lukas about any of his work, not just the MNT reform, please do drop them in the chat. It's always nice for us to know that you're listening and commenting, and we can see everything. I've got them. I can bring them up. And Drew says, it's been far too long since I've seen Lukas and Tina. That's true. It's been far too long since we've hung out in Berlin. There's been some kind of pandemic, apparently. So we're not as mobile as we normally are. So yeah, next when the world opens up again, I'd love to come back and see Lukas and Tina. For those of you that don't know, Tina is the much beloved workshop dog, and I've been told that she might be making a guest appearance later on tonight.
I hope so. She
we
just
love
left
a workshop dog. Oh yeah.
She's here somewhere.
We also have Simon Bates, who's turned up to say hi. Hello, Simon. Nice to see you. And we've also got a hi from Jay, who's doing an elbow cough as well, and a very passionate. So yeah, nice to see that. We've got so you've got your thing to show us. You're gonna let me spotlight you. Let me just take this off. The thing around. I'm gonna change this to here and move you. So we're doing this. No, wrong one. We're gonna There we are. Let's put you in there. There we go.
Cool.
Nice. Okay. What have we got here?
So this is one of the original Reform prototypes, like the one that we call Reform 1. You can, if later I can show the current version and show some differences. So this is kind of, let's say the second design that we came up with. There was like some. Actually, I should get those two. Like one second. I think it's maybe
go.
interesting.
What, you've got such a big workshop space. I like the brick. Very aesthetic.
Yeah. It was a foundry before, like a metal foundry, and this brick stuff there. I think sand was stored in there.
Oh, nice.
I don't know much about. Yeah. Okay. So.
What are we looking at here?
Yeah. So this is a mock-up, a study, that Anna did in the early days. That is completely laser cut. So. Yeah, so we were trying out different ways of how we could make the thing, and this is, for example, laser cut acrylic and this paper or almost like wood material. I forgot the name of that stuff. Like basically very stiff, paper.
Yeah, like card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, this is like
so acrylic and card. Nice.
Yeah, so that's what we did.
So that was your very first prototype of the casing, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then what is this? Oh my goodness!
So what is this? Yeah. So this is kind of a shell. This was the first functional prototype. So there was a board in here. I don't know where it is right now, but I think we just put an IMX6 dev kit in here, and this is some kind of power converter thingy. And here, this plug literally had a big RC battery.
Wow.
And then we had behind this foil, there was some kind of TFT screen with HDMI. And we had a very thin HDMI cable coming out here and going back in here. So, that
was your first functional. That's great.
Yeah. So
and what's the casing made out of? Was that also laser cut, or is that?
No, this is a bit hard to see maybe now on the slide, but it's SLS printed by Shapeways.
Yeah. Nice.
So this is completely printed. I think some kind of nylon powder. Pretty expensive and that doesn't feel good.
Say that looks fun.
Also, this is crazy. So the keyboard it's actually a functional PCB here, and with Cherry ML switches. I'm not sure if you can see them, maybe in the reflection. Yeah, and the keycaps. Also, all of these keycaps are 3D printed with SLA, like with Formlabs printer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
they're translucent. I actually think that's really cool. I like the translucent keycaps. That's a really nice effect.
Yeah. And the individual letters here are vinyl cut. So.
Oh wow! This is like a real makerspace project. Then this is like a real it's sort of like a real hackerspace proper DIY. I always love seeing early prototypes of people's products. It's just all so interesting. I've got a question here. From Dan Winan saying, are those key switch pinholes in the acrylic? I think he's talking about the pink one that you were showing earlier, perhaps, the original one. Maybe the first one that you showed. Yeah. I think he's talking about
because
that
it has
one.
holes,
so
right?
Are they key switch pinholes? Yeah, there we are. So that's your answer then. Exactly.
So we kind of mocked up the PCB for the keyboards first by laser cutting acrylic with the layer that we would think we wanted, and then we put the switches, just stick them in there, right, or glued them. So we could try before doing any PCB stuff. Does it feel right? Is the distances right, and so on. So
you wired them all individually to start off with before creating the keyboard PCB, or?
I did that before, but not on this one. Not for this project. It was really only for exploring the feel, does it make sense at all? You know, like it wasn't functional. It was only for like 3-dimensional, like a model, you know, like a dummy.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we made, I think, 13 of these. And
13, 1-3.
yes, these were sold.
Wow.
So,
and I see the logo
like,
there. That's the first time I've seen that logo on any of the prototypes. That's great.
Yeah. So this is the small sibling of the one that we ship now. But it has some differences, right? Like, so I can maybe show the shipping production one.
Oh yes.
So if you
nice.
check them, you know, from the bottom you see that this one has a PCB, the motherboard that goes all the way through, and it has like these 8 battery cells. Yeah, and this one has one big pouch cell.
Yeah.
And on the other side, a much smaller motherboard, yeah, that goes only like till here.
I see.
And then the new one, the motherboard goes like all the way through. And it has
and
a
there
fan.
were 13 of those in real life. Those must be absolute collector's items now. You know?
Yeah, so this is
first
a
edition.
collector item. Yeah.
Okay.
And you see this, like, we couldn't really figure out a good way, like the magnet stuff that we have now kind of perfected in the new version. We couldn't make it work on time here. So what did we do? We we had a flexible strip, yeah, that goes here, and then, you know, this goes through all. Like it's more like a, I don't know, a piece of clothing, you know, like, or
yeah.
And then you can open this.
That's really cool. And what kind of hinges have you got on that one? Because your hinges are pretty exciting. You're a bit of a nerd about your hinges, aren't you?
They are the same.
They're
so
the same.
These are already the same hinges.
You are faithful to your hinges.
Yes, because we had to buy a lot of them to get them. So we actually have thousands pairs of these in stock.
That's funny. And we've got Dan who says he thinks that there should be a Reform retro version with that amazing color. I would absolutely love a pink Reform. I think.
Yeah, it's true.
And you could, and with pink PCBs as well. That'd be cool.
Oh yeah. I saw that there's
lots of people doing some really nice powder pink PCBs recently. Yeah, very cool.
But another thing, so now you said you notice the pink color, right? So it's not aluminum. So this pink stuff, it's 3D printed. Like this is PLA.
Wow. This is PLA.
So, yes. So the main
how's that stood up to the test of time? Like PLA, I've always had quite a lot of problems with cracking and.
I don't know.
Is it doing all right?
I mean, this unit hasn't been used so much, because it's more like our, I don't know, internal model, but it has held up quite well. Like this, it looks like new.
It does. It actually looks great.
Yeah, I mean,
with the trackball
these kind of little things here would like break off maybe after a while or something. But Also, it already had the trackball, so the trackball was in there from the beginning. But this one is not as good as the current one, and it has only 2 buttons, 2 huge buttons.
They are pretty giant buttons.
And the keyboard, it's more traditional than in the new Reform. We have a bigger space bar. We have this kind of European return chunker and lots of different sizes of keys. So we had that, right? So a lot of people, some people complain that we have a non-traditional layout in this one. Wait, let me. Yeah, okay. So, yes, maybe hard to see, but this one has like split space, and all the keys are, it has only 2 different keycap forms, only one square and 1.5. Yeah. So, and the old one had a more traditional layout where it has all those weird different sizes that you have on traditional keyboards. And the problem was that this was pretty hard to handle. And we had custom wires in here. I don't know if you can see that. So the longer
I can see
keys
that, yeah.
wires that were custom made for us by a wire bending factory. And we printed all of these keys. It was absolutely insane. And to get this kind of right. And it was, never really quite great. Okay, so with the new reform,
that was your second prototype with your giant trackpad and the irritating keys. I mean, the giant trackpad buttons and the irritating keys, and the pink. They went out to 13. And did you sell those, or did you give them to your friends, or both?
We sold them on a website for, I think, around 650 euro or so. And it was written, this is a development prototype, like beta version. If you want to participate in the future of the reform project and blah, blah, you can buy it, but it's kind of not a production kind of device, right? But it was very quickly sold out. And that gave me confidence to continue the project. That there was a lot of interest and feedback on that. So
from
that's
those original 13.
Yeah, so that's maybe a good lesson, right? Like, if you have an idea that you want to make a product, even if you should maybe sell like a small beta run, even if it's not production grade, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people. I mean, obviously, at Crowd Supply, we see a lot of different people who are showing us different products, and often the people who are doing the bigger and the more successful things will often do beta runs and pre-production runs to get that. I mean, it's so essential to get that feedback, isn't it, from those early users? Otherwise, you're spending a lot of time developing something, and you have this huge thing, and you bring it to market, and people are like, I don't like this, or I don't like that button, or these trackpad buttons are too big, or it's absolutely essential to, as you've done, go through a series of iterations and go through a proper several versions that go actually out to people. All right, I've got a few questions here. Actually, let me bring myself back so we can see. Let's pull me back and we can look at some of these comments that are coming on. Let's give some hellos here. So basically, we've got Robin, a writer here. Hello, everybody. Talking about somebody who's doing pre-production samples and getting feedback from their customers. Robin is currently is actually in pre-launch, not quite launched yet, on Crowd Supply, and is going to do a very blinking light-tastic pixel pick-and-place vacuum pump machine, which is really awesome. Hello, Robin. Nice to see you in the chat. We've also got Gabor Samu saying hello from across the pond, Canada. Thanks for putting this together. Hello, nice to see you. Drew said that MNT is an amazing workshop. It's true. And in fact, before the pandemic, Lukas was an amazing host for the Berlin Embedded Linux meetup. That's true. You used to host that there. Not so much anymore.
Co-host with Drew.
This is true. Co-host with Drew. Yes, you're absolutely right. I've got a couple of questions later. So what have we got here? We have got some rumors. Here we are. So Beanie EW says, hello Tina. Oh, hello Tina. Nice to see you. You've got your tennis ball as usual. We want some attention. We love a workshop dog here at Crowd Supply. Beanie said, I've heard rumors that this laptop has nibbles support. Is there any truth to this?
Yes, it's true.
Oh, well, there we are. Do you want to tell them a little bit about it? Or or yes is a sufficient answer here as well.
Yeah, this is kind of an insider joke, I think,
Okay.
from BNU.
All
We've
right.
been working together a bit on Amiga graphics card stuff mostly, but he also has a Reform. There's like a few people who have, who have both the Amiga stuff from us and also the Reform stuff, even if these are kind of like two different worlds. But there is sometimes a bit of overlap between retro and this kind of open hardware stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's
Because,
loads of crossover.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've also got a comment from Dan saying, super happy to see that you are making progress with the development of the follow-ups already, peripherals and more central parts. I'm going to put a pin in that for right now because I can see something exciting and tantalizing on the bench behind you that I'm hoping you're going to show us. But we'll come back to that, I think.
Okay.
And we've also got a little shout out for Tina. Yay, Tina! She's great. Hello, Tina. And then a little shout out for MMG Research. Yes, absolutely. We've got, so we're doing the design process here. So this is a good question. So Lewis Kuiper, hi Lewis. We got a question asking, how long did the hardware design process take between Reform 1 and 2? Now, we've already seen 2 prototypes today and then the final project. So we've got the very, very early, like just the laser cut acrylic kind of things with the, and then we've, that original one. Then we've got the pink one, which I guess is probably the first full version of Reform. And then we've got this new one as well. So we're like, it would be interesting to hear like what the time frame was in that development process. And if are there any other things in there? Were there any other major versions in there aside from that?
Yeah, so there were a few in between versions between these two that I just showed, like between these two releases, let's say. I think mainly around testing different stuff with batteries and motherboard design. There was, I think I made in total around 5 iterations of the motherboard and the whole kind of design until we got it right. But the case design is a direct iteration of this one. Like it has, it has a lot of similarities, almost the same size. It's actually the new one is a bit thinner. It was supposed to be even thinner, but we couldn't make it work because of the trackball. How long did it take? I'm not sure. Maybe a year, approximately, from between those two versions. At least a year.
Were you pretty much full time at that point? Did it take about, or?
Let me think. I think yes. Yeah. I was already full time, mostly full time. I also did some on the side, some like consulting stuff to make ends meet.
Pay for the component.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's true. I mean, the situation was much better than it's now. Right now, it's sometimes really hard to get anything that you need in the.
Oh my goodness! Don't. It's
but
cutthroat
back then,
it
was at least everything was available, right?
Yeah.
But so I would say roughly a year, maybe 1.5 years, full-time refinement. There on our website, we have some articles about progress, like the redesign. Yeah, so the redesign was introduced in May 2019, and the first shipping. Those first version, like those 10, it was Christmas 2018. So yeah, it was like 5 months or 6 months to do the redesign, like the first redesign, and then another at least half a year to polish it. then we went. Then it was the beginning of 2020, and then we started the crowdfunding, which also took quite a while to prepare.
It does. It does. It's not it's not for the faint of heart. It's a real endeavor to do a crowdfunding campaign well. Which you did, of course. You earned, what was the total? So it was $427,000. And to be able to get a large size campaign, that's a huge amount of work that you have to do up front. You can't just show up with a product. There's a lot to do. I've got a question here as well from Noah, asking a bit more about the battery design, saying, how does the LiPo pouch compare to the individual cell configuration in terms of the size, the price, the capacity? Because that's it's a very observable large difference, right, from the pink reform to the current version is the battery design. It'd be interesting to hear why you made that switch and how it shapes up.
The pouch here is actually the same technology. It's already lithium iron phosphate, so it's the same technology that we later split up into cells. And this is only a single cell here with 11 amp hours. And now we have 8 cells with 1.8 amp hours each. So I have to pull up my calculator. So it's a bit larger capacity now. So now we have 14.4 amp hours, and this pouch was like 11 or 10. I'm not really sure. These advertised amp hours are never really correct. They always overspecify them a bit. But the main thing is it was kind of hard to work with a single cell because of the low voltage. So I had trouble boosting this low voltage in a stable way to support all of the system. There was large effects like resistance effects from cabling and so on, and contacts and so on. It's easier to have a bit higher voltage because then you don't lose so much on the way, let's say, through your cables and so on.
And as well as all of those differences, I mean, was the physicality of the batteries, how it would be aligned within the case, was that also a consideration in terms of the decision that you made? But the layout is quite different because of the cell batteries.
But the driving factor was we wanted something that everybody could buy themselves. Even if we were not there anymore or whatever, or you just quickly needed a replacement, there are multiple shops, online shops, where you can very cheaply order these, and these pouches are non-standard. So we got them from various Chinese companies, but you couldn't just buy these as a consumer.
That's great.
In regular battery shops.
See, that's one of the things that I think that I really admire about the MNT reform, is the amount of thought and effort that you put in. In fact, there's a comment here that is similar consideration. So it's amazing how much effort you put into the physical design. And can you talk about the learnings from reform that go into the upcoming pocket reform? But I'd also like to broaden that question out. Because you really, I see a lot of hardware design, of course, this is my job. But something that really sets your work apart from a lot of other people's is just how much thought you put into the physical design, the user experience, considerations that a lot of other engineers wouldn't take, wouldn't think of, it's like, can users replace this battery easily? Can they do this easily? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and your ethos really about that design aspect, and also your documentation, your packaging, all the things that surround it. It's not just the hardware; it's the UX that's just super impressive. So I'd really like to hear a little bit more about that kind of like side of it, but also what Jochen is saying there, how you're learning from
So it comes from it's kind of comes from the collaboration with Anna, and also my background, because I didn't study engineering, but I studied communications at the University of the Arts, and we did a project there as part of the diploma with the School of Design Thinking in Potsdam, and I had a lot of exposure to design thinking and stuff at IDEO, and
that makes a lot of sense.
I was very into the early Apple design and as in hardware and software, and the thinking that was put into that. And when we were making Reform with Anna, she was also like very interested in doing user research early on, and user testing and prototyping, going through iterations and iterations, taking in feedback, redoing it, like versus the approach of, okay, we plan everything out in secret and then just release something and hope it is the perfect thing. That we don't do that. We try to make the little steps and take in the criticism, even if it's sometimes hard to accept, and then see what we can integrate and what we can make better, and release a new version. So that's how we work.
Yeah, I mean, and this very much speaks to what Salman's asked another question, which is, what would you like to share with aspiring makers who want to transform projects to products? And that's a big leap to make, actually. A lot of people have a lot of trouble making that leap from a nice hobby project to something that you can actually sell. And I think what you've spoken about here, this design thinking, this constant iteration, this constant asking for feedback, even if it's painful. I mean, actually, especially if it's painful. I think that's something that's been a common theme throughout our conversations. But is there any advice that you'd give makers who've got a cool project and they want to see how to productize it, if that's a word? It is a word, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say like two things, I guess. So you have to think about: do you really want to do that, or do you want to keep it as a project or as a hobby or like a thing that is non-commercial? Because there can also be value in that, right? Like, because as soon as you decide to actually go to market with something, then you have a whole lot of other kind of responsibilities around it, and a lot of overhead. And if you are a commercial entity, then you have to be prepared to deal with all the administrative work and tax stuff and regulations and so on and so on. So there's a lot of stuff with that that's maybe not so pleasant as, just tinkering and sharing tech projects or design projects. So if you want to do that, you have to think about really hard why you want to do that, and if it's really the right way of, so that's my number one thing. And then basically what I said, and what everybody will probably tell you is that you need to figure out if people really want the thing and spend money for it, and that means you have to test early and get feedback, and also accept the feedback.
Accepting it is also key there. Understanding it and accepting it.
And also a lot of people will have opinions, so sometimes you also have to kind of not accept them because you cannot make everybody happy, right? So that's a conflict, internal conflict, that I have often. I'm always having 100 different ideas in which direction it could go, and being pulled in directions by people like, why don't you put Intel Compute element in there? Why don't you make a classical keyboard layout? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do a network attached storage? And so on and so on and so on. And you have to kind of find your maybe your values, your goals. Why do you do this? Why do you want this thing to exist? Why are you the person to make this thing happen and not something else, right? So, and also, what is really your ability? Like, is there something that you maybe cannot do? Yeah, and you need to be kind of honest about that. So I often say, I can't do that. I have no idea. I'm too stupid to do this. Like a lot of engineers have the kind of approach, I can do everything. Throw any technical challenge at me, I can do it. But my approach is always like, there's a million ways in which this can fail. And there's Murphy's Law, yeah? So everything will go wrong. And this is kind of the default mode, like everything will go wrong. And that's kind of the baseline that you have to deal with. And then if something works, that's really great. Then you can be happy about that. Yeah, for example, okay, if I may plug, like in the last 5 minutes, something.
Of course.
Let
me put you full screen.
Yeah, this is really tiny.
Take that banner off 1 second.
Really tiny. Maybe I can. I'm not sure if I can zoom a bit. Maybe.
Yeah, that's working nicely.
Focus. So, okay. This is the Reform camera module, and it's really small and it has like a lot of extremely tiny parts. This board was not designed by me, but by my friend Felix Schneider, and he used like many like wafer chip scale components that don't really have a package, and many tiny parts that we never assembled before. And I was like, okay, can we even do this? Like, so this was assembled yesterday. And in Reform, we used only 0603 parts that are much bigger. And I avoided, and there's no BGAs on the motherboard of Reform, because I thought I want to reduce the risk that maybe I can't pull that off, right? Like, so don't make your life unnecessarily hard, except if you want a new challenge. But that may conflict with your goal of releasing your product. So sometimes it's good to kind of choose the easy way.
Absolutely. And I think something that you've been talking, that you've come up a lot, so going back a little bit to Salman's question about transforming project to product, I think another thing is when you're accepting the things that you can't do, is finding partnerships with people who can do those things. I mean, a lot of the really successful projects that I've seen are not a single man band. There's people who have, and it's not two engineers working together either necessarily as well. It's a partnership of people that have different skills who can collaborate to create something better than each of those people could create individually, right? It's that enmeshment of those skills that takes things to the next level.
Correct.
In a lot of cases, not for everybody, of course, but like a lot of people do find that finding the right collaborators is very, very important for that. All right, I've got a question
I can also
now.
recommend that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I've got another question from Robin. He's asked, how much time did you spend on sourcing parts? Not the electronic ones, but rather hardware stock parts like display hinges, screws, and brackets. And he goes on to say that I find that took a good piece of the total time that went into my comparably tiny project.
Yes. So at some point I was like, okay, I realized part buying is like a full-time job. So I didn't expect that at all, and it's very true. But it's especially true what Robin says, because for some parts you don't maybe know the standard way or the catalog or the place to look at, right? If you do electronics, you know, maybe, there's Octopart, and I can look up my part there, and I can search at Mouser and so on. You know all the usual suspects, where you could find stuff. But with mechanical parts, it can be very different. And some of these companies operate in very old school ways. Maybe they don't have a catalog at all. It's not like there's no centralized marketplace. So often we go actually we try to do source a lot of stuff in Germany, but it almost never worked out. Because in Germany, maybe in Europe, I don't know, these manufacturers are not prepared to work with small companies. They're only prepared to work with medium to big size companies, because this kind of, so they don't have any real interest to work with you. And that goes, extends also to services like printing and so on. So we went to China for a lot of things. And my main way is then going through Alibaba and finding the providers for a certain thing, also to get inspirations, what is there, and then just talk to people there. So the hinges are from a hinge company in China.
Did you go out to China at all during this process, or was this all done virtually?
No, I was never in China. I heard that some people do that.
People do. People do.
But
you don't go out.
I would have maybe gone now if the whole pandemic thing hadn't started, right? So that was the time where I was basically prepared to maybe make a visit or something to talk to some of the providers that we would have been working with. But then I was like, nah, nope.
I've got a question from Drew, who says he is very excited about the powerful Layerscape module. Can you talk about that module? And also, can you talk about how you got funding to work on that? And there's also another question from Jay Kruer saying, what was the other little board that you just flashed? This seems like a really good time to talk, to revisit that question from right at the beginning. When we talked about all the follow-ups, the peripherals, the different parts, and what have you got going? Like, talk about the different modules. Talk about Layerscape. We've had a little look at the camera module, which is the little board that you were flashing. And like, tell me what you've been working on and what's coming up.
Okay, I don't have the Layerscape module here. It only exists in Spain at the moment at RBZ, who is our partner in developing the board. It's open hardware. And it's Cortex. It's an NXP Layerscape LS1028A processor, and the main thing we wanted to address with it is the limitation of the memory. Currently, the IMX8M in reform is limited to 4 gigs, but with that module you can use 8 or 16 gigabytes of DDR4, and otherwise it's kind of similar to the IMX8. It has some kind of, it shares some IP with it, and it has almost the same GPU, but it has different processor cores. It has 2 Cortex-A72 cores, so it has faster single core performance, but it has less cores. So it's kind of a trade-off, but a lot of software is unoptimized for multi-core, so all of that software will run faster on it. And then what I have here.
A follow-up question from Jay on the Layerscape module before you move on. He says that is the Layerscape module going to draw much more power than the IMX8 module?
We don't know that yet, but I like calculations and so on. So I think it's not drawing a lot more. So it's kind of in the similar ballpark.
All right.
But yeah, the module is still in bring up. Yeah, so the
the
other little board.
Yeah.
That's this, right? So this one, maybe I can try to zoom again.
Yeah, try and zoom again.
I feel like I'm on this TV.
It's a good zoom.
Whoop. Okay.
Oh,
so,
nice.
This side is not yet populated. It will be populated on Monday. Like it's this is the RKX7, and the back is already populated. So this is the FPGA module with Kintex 7, and some support chips, 2 GB of DDR3, and USB 3 transceiver, and HDMI, and internal display. So this you can then plug into Reform. Underneath the heatsink, you have the iMix module. You take that out, and then you can plug this in. And this is kind of a more experimental module where you can maybe run RISC-V systems or retro systems like Amiga or whatever consoles or PlayStation or whatever you want to emulate. So there's really no... so this, you can go really wild with this. And
Beanie says, finally, an NES laptop.
Exactly. And so this is the camera module. I showed it already. So it's modular. The camera can be unplugged. It's on a little flat connector here, so you can upgrade it later. And it has a Cypress CX3 chip. That's basically just a MIPI, like CSI to USB converter, but it's fully programmable. This
I'm excited about this one. What is this?
So it's a case, aluminum case for the keyboard. So that's a purple one, but there's like a bunch of other colors. So here is the keyboard module, and that's the same that is in Reform. Wait, I'm out of focus. And there's like only a tiny difference, which is like one little voltage converter that you can also solder in there if you wanted to convert it, So if you want to recycle Reform later, you can. The idea is that you can take out all the parts and put them in their own cases, and you can still use the keyboard or something.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and we're selling this, so you can put it in here.
Drew says purple. I approve.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then put that on top. So, and the little OLED will go here.
I've seen a few of them floating around Twitter, and I've been coveting one. For those of us who want to stay up to date with all of these modules, to be first in line for getting tester versions or for purchasing when you finally decide that they're ready for being manufactured and sold, where can people find you? What's the best place for people to stay up to date with your work?
Okay, so I would say probably my Twitter. So it's MNTMN on Twitter, like Minuteman without the vocals. And then I'm also on the Fediverse. So that's the same nickname, MNTMN, at mastodon.social. And of course, on our website, mntre.com is short for MNT Research. So there's like a link to the shop. And then in the next week, we will put in some of those things there. And who knows, maybe we will do another launch with
I would love that. That would be very cool. Let's have a little, let's add your, so this is your, this is MNT Reform. Oh, that's not the one I was trying to share. I was trying to share.
That's a good one too.
That's a good one. That is a good place. I was trying to share this one. This is your website. Welcome to MNT Research. You've got all of these good things here. These delightful peripherals. And look, here we go. There's Tina the dog, and you've got much more natural colored hair there. Lots of information here. A shop as well. How delightful. And I also wanted to just show everybody your Twitter so people can find you there. So that's twitter.com, obviously, and that's MNTMN. That's this here. So any of you want to get in touch and keep in touch, you should check out all of those things. I'm going to take that off now. Well, we've gone over our time, Lucas, but I'm having a really nice time. So if there's anything else you want to share, or you want to show us around your workshop or anything, like, I'd be very happy to. Or it's also pretty late. It's like 10 o'clock on a Friday night, 9 o'clock here. But you got anything else you wanted to show us before we wrap up? Oh, here we are. Drew's got a request. Drew says, "Can Tina make a cameo?"
Huh. Tina was already here. Maybe you missed her,
yeah.
Drew.
Yeah, I think you might have missed her. She jumped up earlier, and she's been wandering around in the background. We've heard some little whoofs. We've heard some whoofs around.
Yeah. So no, I would maybe take the opportunity to say thanks, and thanks especially to everyone who supported us and backed us and believed in us that we would actually ship the thing, which we are doing, and hang in there for the post crowdfunded units, which we are building now, and which we are shipping over the next months. And thanks for this pretty wild ride. Yeah.
It's been a pretty wild ride, and it's been absolutely wonderful to see this develop and to see you get them out of the door. It's genuinely a feat, and your standard of UX, your standard of documentation, like everything is just absolutely delightful, and you've done a really great job. So I can't overstate how much I admire the work that you've been doing, and it's really nice to see your face as well. It's been a minute, hasn't it? It's been a minute. It's nice to see you.
Been.
It has.
Great to see you.
All right, everybody. It's time to get on with our evenings. I hope you have enjoyed hanging out with us on your Friday evening, Friday afternoon, or whatever it is, wherever you are in the world. I've been Helen Lee, your host for Crowd Supply's Teardown Sessions, and this is Lucas from the MNT Reform. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you again. Our next live stream is with Timon, he visited your workshop a couple of weeks ago. Am I wrong?
Yeah, a few days ago, actually.
Yeah. So our next live stream will be on the 1st of October, same time, same place, on our YouTube channel. I will make sure, for those of you who are watching us asynchronously, I'll make sure I drop a bunch of links into the description underneath on the YouTube channel. So I'll make sure we get all of the cool things that we talked about tonight. I'll make sure we get all those links up in there. But it's been really, really fun. I'm getting lots of wonderful saying thanks for this. Simon says thanks for the interview. We've got Jochen saying thank you, keep up the great work. Jay says thanks for the session, Lucas and Helen, you're absolutely welcome. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. And Lewis says thanks for the chat too. So thanks so much. I will see you all on the 1st of October. Thanks so much for joining us, Lucas, and thanks everybody. Bye. Bye now. Bye.